I'm very happy to share this moment to wish Arirang TV happy 30 years anniversary. 30 years usually is one generation, so this is one generation old achievement. One generation of inspiring stories, of bringing Korea to the world and the world to Korea. As a diplomat here in Korea for the past 4 years, Arirang has been my only TV that I use as the reference point to understand Korea, to learn Korea, and get news from the Korean lens. But that's not all story. Arirang has been very close to diplomats in Korea and to myself. Very happy that Arirang gave me an opportunity to understand more Korea, but again, to let Koreans understand Tanzanians. I wish Arirang 30 years anniversary and 30 years more and 30 years more to generations. Thank you.
Time to set the facts straight. Get Korea right.
여러분, 지금 보고 계신 이 모습, 뭔지 아시나요? 바로 택견입니다. 안녕하세요. 저는 방크 연구원 구승현입니다. 네, 여러분, 지금부터 제가 한국의 전통 무예인 택견에 대해 소개해 드릴게요.
홀수에게 섞어라! 섰다!
택견은 유연하고 율동적인 동작인 품밟기라는 우리 고유의 독창적 보법을 중심으로 상대를 발로 차거나 넘기는 기술을 사용하는 무예예요. 그런데 택견을 보고는 전통춤이다, 기술연이다, 도검을 들고 한다, 이크에크 소리는 익살스러운 추임새다 라고 잘못 알고 계신 분들이 있어요. 택견에 대한 오류 정보 바로 잡아볼까요?
섞어라! 해! 섰다! 해!
택견은 부드러운 동작으로 순간적으로 상대방을 압도하는 한국의 전통 무예이자 민속 경기예요. 도건 같은 도구는 쓰지 않는 맨손 무예입니다.
잠깐, 뭔가 하나 빠졌는데요?
네? 뭘요?
택견은 중요 무형문화재거든요. 1983년에 국가가 중요 무형문화재로 지정했습니다. 그리고 2011년에는 무예로서는 최초로 유네스코가 인류 무형문화유산에 등재했죠.
유네스코 인류 무형 문화유산으로 등재가 되었다고요? 그리고 세계 최초로요?
예, 세계가 인정한 거죠.
맞네요. 우리 고유의 전통 무예이자 세계가 인정한 문화재인 택견. 앞으로 많은 사랑과 관심 부탁드려요. 한국 바로 알리기에
함께 해주세요.
President Lee Jae-myung wrapped up his 60th trip on Friday after holding summit talks with leaders of India and Vietnam to bolster economic and strategic ties, seen as a key to Seoul's push to diversify supply chains and secure critical minerals. U.S. President Donald Trump has downplayed the possibility of a nuclear strike against Iran, while Tehran claims it has begun collecting tolls from ships passing through the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz. Petrol and diesel prices have surged past the 2001 mark nationwide, but the South Korean government says that there are no immediate concerns over the country's oil supplies for next month. President Lee Jae-myung is on his way back to Korea, wrapping up his 60 two-nation trip to India and Vietnam. On his final day in Hanoi, President Lee and First Lady Gimhae visited a UNESCO-listed landmark with Vietnam's first couple. Our Blue House correspondent Song Yoo-jin reports.
A walk through history for a shared future. President Lee Jae-myung wrapped up his state visit to Vietnam with a stop at the Imperial Citadel of Thang Long, one of Hanoi's most renowned landmarks. At the UNESCO World Heritage Site, Lee and First Lady Gimhae were welcomed by Vietnam's top leader Do Lam and his spouse Ngo Phuong Lee. Lee wore a red and blue striped tie, while Kim appeared in a white jacket and skirt, a combination resembling the colors of South Korea's national flag, the taegukgi. The attire was meant to express national pride while returning Vietnam's warm hospitality with equal courtesy.
The Vietnamese side carefully prepared this program as a gesture of reciprocity following the warm hospitality shown during General Secretary Do Lam's visit to South Korea last year. It is expected to further deepen the friendship and bond between the two leaders.
The citadel, built in the 11th century, reflects architectural influences from China, Vietnam, and France. The two couples toured the site before sharing tea outdoors while enjoying traditional Vietnamese performances. Together, they looked through a photo book documenting President Lee's 4-day visit. The Vietnamese first couple saw off their Korean counterparts at the end of the visit, with Lee and Do Lam exchanging a warm embrace. On the same day, the Blue House also revealed the gifts that had been prepared. For General Secretary Do Lam, the gifts featured a traditional Korean painting of the mythical creature Hete and a pine tree, symbols of justice and integrity, along with a speaker bearing a caricature of the couple, reflecting his appreciation for classical music. The First Lady was given merchandise from the National Museum of Korea, a beauty device, and a traditional mother-of-pearl box. Lee's office says his state visit this time helped strengthen political trust with Vietnam's new leadership and lay the groundwork for further developing bilateral ties. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Now on to the Middle East crisis. U.S. President Donald Trump has ruled out using nuclear weapons against Iran and said he won't be rushed to end the war as negotiations with Tehran drag on. Kim Bo-kyung has this report.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Thursday that he would not use a nuclear weapon in the war against Iran. Trump made the remark in answer to a reporter's question at an event focused on healthcare at the White House.
Why would I use a nuclear weapon when we've totally, in a very conventional way, decimated them without it? No, I wouldn't use it. A nuclear weapon should never be allowed to be used by anybody.
As for the ceasefire and denuclearization talks, Trump said the U.S. has been continuing talks with Iran, but does not even know who is leading the country, saying they are in a state of confusion. When asked how long he is willing to wait until Iran submits a proposal for an agreement, Trump expressed his intention not to rush.
I want to make the best deal. I could make a deal right now. Do you know that if I left right now, we had a tremendous success? It would take them 20 years to rebuild, but I don't want to do that. I want to have it everlasting.
While saying the U.S. has total control of the Strait of Hormuz, he said it will open when the deal is made or something else happens that's very positive. To the possibility that Iran may have reinforced some of its military capabilities during the recent 2-week ceasefire period, he said they could have loaded up a bit during the hiatus. But even so, he claimed Washington would be able to knock any gains out in about 1 day. This comes after Trump, in a warning against Iran, said he had ordered the U.S. Navy to immediately shoot and kill any boat laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz, no matter how small the boat may be. Meanwhile, the ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel was extended by 3 weeks after a high-level meeting at the White House. This meeting was the second to take place in 9 days following the first high-level talks between the sides in 33 years held earlier this month in Washington, D.C., mediated by the U.S. Secretary of State. Trump said he looked forward to hosting the two leaders of both sides in the near future.
Israel, and we think that the president of Lebanon and the prime minister of Israel over the next couple of weeks will be coming here. They've agreed to an additional 3 weeks of no firing, ceasefire, no more firing, let's see.
He added that the U.S. will work with Lebanon to get things straightened out regarding Hezbollah. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Iran says it has begun collecting tolls from ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz, with the first revenues already deposited into its central bank. Lee Seung-ja has the details.
Iran says it has begun collecting tolls from ships transiting the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz, marking a significant step in its effort to tighten control over one of the world's most important energy routes. Parliament Deputy Speaker Hamid Reza Haji Babai said Thursday that the first revenues from transit fees have already been deposited into the country's central bank. Another lawmaker, Ali Reza Salimi, confirmed that vessels are now being charged, though officials did not disclose how many ships have paid so far. Iranian authorities say the fees vary depending on cargo type, volume, and the level of risk posed by each vessel, with Tehran determining both the rates and collection system. The move follows earlier reports, including one by the Wall Street Journal, that Iran had ordered ships to arrange payments in advance through the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, with transitions possibly made in cryptocurrency or Chinese yuan. Lawmakers have also been considering legislation that would formalize the toll system for ships passing through the narrow waterway. Amid the escalating tensions, Iran's leadership is also emphasizing internal unity. According to Iran's state-run IRNA news agency, Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei said divisions among Iran's adversaries are widening, while the country's cohesion is growing stronger. He warned against what he described as foreign media efforts to undermine national stability. In a joint statement, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian and Parliamentary Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf stressed that Iran stands united, regardless of political differences, and vowed retaliation against any aggressor. Senior officials echoed that message, calling for solidarity under the leadership as regional tensions remain high and uncertainty continues over potential negotiations with the United States. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
In related news, Pope Leo has delivered a strong message against war, warning of civilian deaths and growing global instability amid tensions over in the Middle East. Our Oh Soo-young has more.
Pope Leo says he cannot be in favor of war, urging all sides to return to dialogue amid tensions involving the United States, Iran and Israel. Speaking on Thursday on his return flight to Rome after a four-nation tour of Africa, the pontiff called for renewed diplomatic efforts, warning against further division and violence.
Rather, I would encourage the continuation of dialogue for peace, that all parties participate, that they seek solutions, that they make every effort to promote peace, reduce the threat of war, and respect international law. It is very important that innocent people be protected, which has not been the case in several places.
He acknowledged that efforts to resolve the crisis remain uncertain, with negotiations between Tehran and Washington showing little consistency.
The negotiations themselves are uncertain. One day, Iran says yes, the United States says no, and vice versa. We do not know where this will lead, and this has created a chaotic situation, critical for the global economy.
Turning to the situation inside Iran, the Pope stressed that ordinary civilians are bearing the brunt of the conflict. He added that rather than regime change, the focus should be on preventing further loss of life. Separately, the Pope also condemned the killing of protesters in Iran after criticism from US President Donald Trump that he had not spoken out strongly enough on the issue. Pope Leo, the first American Pope, was slammed by Trump on social media as terrible earlier this month. The Pope has criticized the ongoing war and the US leader's immigration policies. Oh Seong, Arirang News.
A National Security Advisor, Ri Sung-rak, has drawn a clear distinction between the domestic investigation here into e-commerce giant Coupang and the defense commitment shared by South Korea and the U.S. At a briefing on Thursday in Hanoi, he called for security consultations between the two countries to proceed separately. He also said he was in contact with the Republican lawmakers who recently sent a letter regarding Coupang to South Korean ambassador to the U.S., Kang Kyung-hwa. The U.S. has insisted that South Korea's probe into the U.S.-listed company for its massive data leak is a discrimination. Korea's tech-heavy KOSDAQ index soared above the 1,200 mark for the first time in over 25 years. According to the Korea Exchange on Friday, the index closed the trade at 1,203.8. That's up 2.5% from its session on Thursday. The significant milestone, last seen in August 2000, came as semiconductor equipment, material stock, and biotech shares led broad gains across the index. Now, the rally was led by foreign investors who net bought roughly 800 billion won worth of shares. Domestic gasoline and diesel prices have broken through the 2001 threshold. Now, this comes even as the government extends its wholesale price freeze into its fourth consecutive period, and with volatile global oil prices amid the ongoing Middle East situation. Kim Do-yeon has more.
As of Friday afternoon, the national average for diesel reached 2,000.531 per liter, crossing the 2001 mark for the first time since July 2022. Gasoline is also up, averaging 2,006.451 nationally and 2,043.941 in the capital, Seoul. To combat these rising costs, the government on Friday initiated its fourth petroleum price ceiling. This keeps wholesale supply prices frozen at 1,934 won for gasoline and 1,023 won for diesel. With this fourth review, wholesale caps have now been maintained for 6 consecutive weeks.
While international product prices for gasoline and diesel have fallen by 8% and 14%, respectively, there's still instability in the Middle East. The government believes it is desirable to share the burden to relieve the public, considering petroleum products account for 4.66% of consumer prices. We needed to preemptively block inflationary pressure.
While the government cited prior drops in international benchmarks to justify freezing the wholesale ceiling rather than lowering it, global markets remain highly volatile. In fact, on Thursday in the U.S., Brent crude futures closed at $105.07 per barrel, and U.S. West Texas Intermediate reached $95.85 amid ongoing geopolitical escalations. Experts note the committee's decision reflects a preference for immediate market stability.
The fact that the current prices have been frozen is not too surprising. Because the international gas prices, international oil prices have fallen a bit since after the third decision by the committee. So the fact that the price has been frozen perhaps indicates that the committee is reflecting on the fact that the prices had fallen and they want stability in prices to continue.
Currently, oil importers and refineries continue to absorb the financial losses from the wholesale caps, and the government has not yet provided estimates for state reimbursement. With international price fluctuations typically taking 2 to 3 weeks to reach local gas stations, the full impact of the recent crude surge has yet to be realized. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, the Blue House says there are no immediate concerns over Korea's oil supply for next month. Presidential Chief of Staff Kang Won-sik told reporters on Friday that the country has secured 74.6 million barrels of crude oil for May, about 87% of last year's monthly average imports. He added that Korea has reduced its reliance on Middle Eastern oil from 69% to 56% by bringing in additional supplies from the Americas and Africa. Kang also said efforts are underway to diversify shipping routes, noting that nearly 24 million barrels from Saudi Arabia and 16 million from the UAE are set to arrive in May through routes that bypass the Strait of Hormuz. Amid the Middle East crisis, Koreans panic-bought trash bags over fears that naphtha shortages would hit production of this essential item. Though the situation has since calmed down, it hinted at the need to transition into recycling and reusing trash bags. An Sung-jin has this report.
The ongoing situation in the Middle East has had unexpected effects here at home in Korea, one of them being supplies of trash bags selling out. Nearly 2 months into the conflict, I visited local supermarkets to see how the supply situation is unfolding on the ground. While trash bags are now available in more places, including this residential area in Seoul, the once easy-to-come-by items sparked panic buying at one point. Some stores had once limited purchases to single rolls only, with customers coming in asking for stock buys.
Now we have enough, so there's no limit. But when people came to hoard trash bags, we had a set number.
This wasn't an isolated case.
Since the Middle East situation, the sales of trash bags have surged, especially compared to last year.
The one shortage traced back to disruptions in resource supply, as tensions in the Middle East strain global energy markets. And in times like these, alternatives for a more reliable future are no longer optional, but essential. For more than 20 years, this company in Gyeongsang-namdo province has been recycling plastic waste into trash bags. Today, with the naphtha shortage making the headlines, their once overlooked work is now in the spotlight. Discarded plastic from industrial packaging, greenhouse vinyl, and even agricultural waste like rice straw coverings all come together at this factory. Lee, an experienced veteran in the industry for around 40 years, would sort these raw recycled pellets and melt them to transform waste into new trash bags. Even the printed labels on the bags are designed with sustainability in mind, made from soluble ink that minimizes their environmental impact. The finished products are delivered to around 10 regions across the country, supporting local supply chains during a time of strain. For Yi, the work has never been about profit.
Recycling plastic this way is something that should have been done a long time ago. Now it feels like the world is finally catching up.
Lawmakers also stress their efforts to accelerate the transition to renewable energy.
The transition will require a more structured legislative and policy framework. We aim to expand into renewables by securing the necessary budget.
The global supply uncertainties continue. Small, steady efforts like these may prove to be a path toward a more resilient and sustainable future. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, a number of visits to public libraries broke past 230 million in 2025. That is up 2.8% on year. Relevant authorities say this upward trend marks the fourth straight year of annual growth and linked the phenomenon to libraries serving as a multifunctional cultural centers. Accordingly, the number of public libraries has also risen, with 1,328 libraries in Korea as of last year, up 2.5% on year. Korea's sports minister has pledged expanded investment in grassroots sports, calling it key to the country's long-term competitiveness. Choi Hee-hyung on a Friday attended the opening ceremony of the 2026 Korea Sport for All Festival in Gimhae City, Gyeongsang-namdo Province. The 4-day event, which began on Thursday, will run through Sunday, is expected to bring together some 20,000 participants from across the country, competing in 41 different sports. Choi also met with regional sports officials to discuss ways to further promote public participation in athletics. He also visited competition venues, cheering on athletes and highlighting the role of everyday sports in improving public health and reducing medical costs. A week after the wolf named Neukgu was safely captured following its escape from a zoo in the central city of Daejeon, the animal has continued to gain popularity and attention. For more on this, we turn to our Park Konu here in the studio. Welcome back, Konu.
Great to be here.
So, Konu, Neukgu's been quite the hot topic this past week, hasn't he?
Yes, so Neukgu, everyone's so obsessed about this wolf. But before I tell you more, let's first talk about Neukgu itself. The name is a combination of Neukde, meaning wolf in Korean, and Gu, which means 9, as he was the 9th born among its siblings. Since its escape and capture, Neukgu has continued to draw significant attention. But before we get into the details, let's first take a look at this furry friend. Videos showing Neukgu eating a special meal of beef and chicken as it began to regain its strength gained millions of views in the space of just a couple of days, drawing thousands of likes, comments, and shares. However, O-World, the zoo responsible for the wolf, has suspended posting new videos, saying updates will resume once Neukgu has fully recovered. The animal is now reported to be in stable condition after being captured safely and undergoing surgery to remove a fishing needle from its stomach a week ago. As the capture drew massive attention, public interest has continued, fueling a wave of online memes. The buzz has also led to bakeries selling Neukgu-themed desserts and pastries, modeled after the animal.
We first launched it on the 18th, the day after Neukgu was captured. Now, people line up 1 to 2 hours in advance to buy. We're selling out hundreds of them each day.
But behind the viral popularity, concerns are also growing over zoo safety. Some experts say stronger preventive measures are needed to ensure such incidents don't happen again.
There needs to be a process of identifying and addressing gaps in current standards and turning them into clear guidelines. For dangerous animals, maintaining a 2-person keeper system is especially important. Daily checklists should also be introduced to inspect facility wear and tear, as well as the animal's health and behavior.
An O-World official said the zoo is set to undergo an inspection by local authorities next week, adding that facility checks and repairs will be completed during that time. The zoo remains temporarily closed due to the incident, and the official told Arirang News that no reopening date has yet been set, despite some reports of a reopening in early May. With Neukgu's popularity continuing to grow, and more people hoping to see the animal in person, all eyes are now on when the zoo will reopen.
Well, Kanu, now that Neukgu is back home safe and sound, calls are growing for tighter zoo safety measures, even with the government also stepping in to take action, right?
That's right. So the Ministry of Climate, Energy and Environment says it will overhaul zoo safety management systems and animal welfare standards following the O-World wolf escape. The ministry announced that this week that it will conduct inspections of all 121 zoos across the country, focusing on measures to prevent animal escapes and overall safety conditions for visitors. It also plans to expand its zoo licensing system, as currently only 10 zoos have been officially licensed under the system introduced in 2023. The government aims to have more than 90% of zoos licensed by the end of next year. And to support this, the number of inspectors responsible for reviewing licensing requirements will increase over the next 2 years. Meanwhile, experts say changes are also needed in how zoos operate their programs, considering animal welfare.
Zoos that continue to offer experiences such as touching or feeding animals cannot be considered good zoos. Zoos should focus on educational programs, such as explaining animal behavior while using audiovisual materials. Involving visitors in enrichment activities that help animals display more natural behaviors is a good example.
Indeed. Well, Kanu, with the Neukgu emerging as a nationwide sensation, some are asking whether this could be leveraged into promoting both the city and the zoo.
That's also right. So local authorities are considering turning Neukgu into one of the city's most popular mascots. And however, some experts stress that safety improvement should also come first.
Animals should be raised in safe and hygienic environments, but promoting the zoo before those conditions are fully improved wouldn't be appropriate. But this movement could raise public awareness about animal welfare and living conditions, and ultimately contribute to creating safer and more hygienic environments for animals.
The professor added that this could be an opportunity to promote the city, much like the popularity of the panda Fubao, which drew large numbers of visitors to the theme park where it used to live years ago.
Safety first for animals as well. Now, Kanu, thanks for coming in tonight.
Always a pleasure.
Spring is really in full swing now. We're looking at a mild and pleasant weekend ahead, with afternoon temperatures running above seasonal averages. It's going to feel quite warm during the day, and overall we'll see plenty of sunshine. In Seoul, day-to-night temperature swings will be around 15 degrees, so please be mindful of your outfit and dress in layers. As for nationwide weather, we're looking at mostly clear skies across the country tomorrow, and air quality should stay in good shape as well. Dry weather advisories have expanded to more areas nationwide. With dry air and some strong winds, the risk of wildfires increases significantly, so be extra careful outdoors. Tomorrow, Seoul will start the day at 10 degrees Celsius, Chuncheon at 7 degrees, Busan at 11 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 25 degrees, Chuncheon, Daegu, Gwangju all topping out at 25 degrees as well. Throughout the weekend, Seoul will stay mostly sunny with highs around 25 degrees. But rain is expected to move into central regions late Monday night into early Tuesday.
That's all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.
Good evening and welcome to the 10 o'clock edition of Arirang News. Thanks for joining us on this special day, a day in which Arirang TV first goes on the air.
Arirang TV is Korea's first.
From all of us here at Arirang, thank you for watching. Your city next to 30 years.
There's a part of me that's letting you go. Some of you all are my favorite. I'm so done with I try my best, but you said, oh boy, me too. 'Cause I'm so done with being dumb and done with do you think about us? 'Cause I'm so done with being dumb and done with
Knock knock! The magical door to the world of K-animation is swinging wide open. Meet your instant new BFF, the adorable Catch. Tina Ping will have you hooked from the very first glance. Need a hand? Our Robocar Poli Rescue team is always zooming in to save the day. How about tagging along on Pinkfong and Pal's super exciting quest to reclaim their lost magic? With the mysterious life forms Cabion by your side, you can become a Cabion master and save humanity like the total hero. Protecting children's innocence while igniting their boundless imaginations. That's the magic of Korean animation. K-animation, the ultimate bestie for kids worldwide.
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-gyun. The U.S.-Iran ceasefire is increasingly under strain. President Donald Trump has extended the truce, saying it will hold until Iran submits a unified proposal, while the White House denies any fixed deadline. Tehran, however, insists talks are blocked, pointing to the ongoing U.S. naval blockade and what it calls growing mistrust. On the ground, tensions are rising. Iran's Revolutionary Guard has seized multiple vessels and stepped up enforcement in the Strait of Hormuz after a second round of talks collapsed. With both sides digging in, the risk of a military clash is growing too, raising broader questions about the path towards forward diplomacy and the potential impact on the Korean Peninsula and the wider global order. For more on this, we invite Evans Revere, former acting U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs and non-resident senior fellow in the Foreign Policy Program at Brookings, here in the studio with us. A very big welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
So, Mr. Revere, let's begin with President Trump's declaration of this indefinite ceasefire. Iran says it's really meaningless under this naval blockade. What is driving this deadlock right now?
Well, I think it's pretty clear, at least to me as a longtime observer of diplomacy and foreign policy and national security matters, that each side wants a deal. Each side wants to bring this to an end for very different reasons. The Iranians are hurting economically. the blockade and the cutoff, basically, of their sea trade out of their ports with the rest of the world is hurting them. It's hurting the economy. It's putting a lot of pressure on them domestically. And there is some potential, I think, that it might lead to domestic unrest. And I think the Iranians are well aware of that. So that's their interest in having some kind of a conclusion to this conflict. For the United States, I think the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and the United States also want this to end as quickly as possible for a number of interesting but rather different reasons. Number one, the primary one, is I think they understand that they have achieved a tactical success against Iran's military and the security elements in Iran. But I think they also realize that they're facing a possible strategic failure in this ongoing campaign. Iran is closer than ever to exercising almost total control over the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. military, even though it has achieved all of the stated military objectives, realizes that they can't achieve some of the ultimate objectives that the president sought, such as the destabilization of the regime. They can't do that militarily. Iran is digging in. Iran has a lot of experience fighting long wars and is very patient and is very stubborn. And so the two sides, as you suggested, are stuck. The Iranians, I think, in order to get this unstuck, are going to have to figure out a way to demonstrate to the United States sincerely, or maybe not so sincerely, that they're prepared to make some concessions on their nuclear program. And for the United States is going to have to figure out a way to either ease or call off the blockade, which would then allow the Iranians to save some face and come back to the table. But I think a deal is possible, difficult but possible. And I think, as I said at the outset, both sides have an interest in bringing this conflict to an end.
Mm-hmm. So concessions would be necessary.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that, President Trump, he repeated that ceasefire extensions, of course, we've seen that, and he said it's, some people say it's really tied to the falling approval rate within America's domestic politics, and of course the pressure coming from the midterms. How much do you think this America's domestic politics is shaping their Middle East policy?
Well, I think it's definitely a factor. I mean, if you look at the president's poll numbers, if you look at recent elections that have taken place in the United States, you see support moving away from the president. The midterm elections are not that far away. We have a president who promised economic benefits to the American people. He promised to be the president who ended all of these so-called forever wars. Neither of those two things is happening, and that, I think, is causing some fissures and fractures in his coalition and his support. It's undermining his popular support. The level of support for this military action against Iran in the United States is low and is getting lower. And I think if serious combat were to resume, including the possibility of ground operations, it would go even lower. So I think the domestic political scene is weighing very heavily on the White House right now and is contributing to this desire for the United States to somehow bring this conflict to an end.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good to hear, because you know both sides, they have a same ultimate same goal to end the conflict.
That doesn't necessarily translate into an easy deal, though.
Right, definitely. Now, on the tensions, Iran has warned that it could actually use force and has already seized ships in the Strait of Hormuz. How serious do you think would a possibility of a military clash would be over there?
I can't dismiss that possibility. Iran has already used force. The United States has already used force in the Straits. A lot of what we're seeing, I think, is tactical gamesmanship designed to put pressure on the other side and to remind the other side of its capabilities. And we can't dismiss the possibility of conflict, but at this point, I see a lot of this is mostly tactical and designed to put pressure on the other side. There are some potentially major mistakes that could be made. There could be miscalculations by either side. For the United States, as I suggested a moment ago, opening up ground operations in Iran, I think would be a tremendous mistake and would lead to a terrible escalation. For the Iranians to start sinking ships as opposed to just firing at them or seizing them would be another major step. For the Iranians to announce that permanently going forward, they will control the Strait of Hormuz, that's a non-starter for the United States. So there are a lot of ways this could go wrong, but I'm not panicking at this moment, and I'm still hopeful that the two sides have enough incentive to try to strike a deal that will avoid any possible escalation of this conflict.
Right. Speaking of, hopes, President Trump has said that renewed talks could begin as early as this weekend. How do you see negotiations resuming, and what do you think is the minimum to get there?
The two key issues, the issue for the Iranians is, will the United States roll back its blockade and its interception of ships? That's critical for them. It's not only an issue of face, it's a practical issue for them. They feel threatened by that for obvious reasons. For the United States, they need some indication that Iran is prepared to suspend its nuclear-related activities. The longer the better, and the more complete the suspension, the better. That's something that the Iranians have been unwilling to do, or unwilling to do to the degree that Washington wants it. The Iranians are, I believe, never going to give up the right to reprocessing. And in my own view, this war has confirmed for them the importance of actually getting nuclear weapons at some point. So bridging that gap between these two positions and getting each side to make a concession that's big enough to entice the other side to come to the table, but not so big that it gives away a key card. I think that's where we are right now in this very delicate diplomatic game.
Right, very tough negotiations, so we're expecting. But the U.S., it has seized a vessel carrying Iranian oil and pointed to possible Chinese involvement, which is causing a lot of concerns, of course. Do you think this could actually, spread or spill into U.S.-China tensions as well?
There are some who believe that's the case. What's interesting about the Chinese role here is the United States needs the Chinese to fix this problem because of China's relationship, very special relationship with Pakistan, which has been hosting the talks. The Chinese have their own channels to Tehran. China has an interest in getting the oil flowing again, obviously. So China has a role to play in bringing this conflict to a conclusion. And so to the extent that the United States goes after either Chinese vessels or oil that is bound for China, that complicates the equation for China and might lead China to react rather negatively in ways that could undermine the U.S. position. So the United States has to be very careful going forward because, as I said at the outset, China can help the United States fix this problem. But we need to demonstrate to the Chinese that we're not going to sort of make this about them. This ought to remain about Iran and the Iranians.
So we'll really have to look forward to the upcoming summit.
I think something has to happen before that summit.
Definitely. Now, when we turn to the South Korea-U.S. alliance, Mr. Revere, U.S. Forces Korea Commander Javier Brunson says the focus of the USFK is kind of shifting from troop levels to capabilities. How do you see its role evolving?
Well, I think the message from the commander has been a very subtle one, but a very clear one, at least to me, and that is the role of U.S. forces on the peninsula and around the peninsula is changing. There is a shift that's going on. And the shift may result in some downsizing or resizing of our level of troops on the peninsula. It may also involve, and I think will involve, a change in the roles and missions of those forces, perhaps to include a broader regional mission, perhaps in China or Taiwan-related contingencies. But I think the message from General Brunson is an important one, and that is, whatever happens in those areas, the capabilities that the United States brings to bear to defend the Republic of Korea and to fulfill our alliance obligations, those capabilities will remain even if there are some adjustments in the force levels and the missions. And that's an important message for Korea, of course. It wants to be reassured that there will be no diminishment of the U.S. capabilities that are devoted to defend the ROK.
So they're both focusing on capability and flexibility as well. Now, regarding the OPCON transfer, Mr. Revere, General Brunson mentioned a possible timeline of 2029. What could delay or accelerate that deadline?
Well, for the United States, it has been a very capabilities-focused measure of success. The U.S. believes that only if and when Korea has the range of capabilities that would allow it to take control of its own forces in wartime, that's when the shift should take place, the transfer should take place. There are similar thoughts in the ROK government. However, there's also a political factor here. There's a strong push towards autonomy, autonomous defense. There are elements inside the ROK government who are keenly interested in developing a more autonomous defense capability. And I think there's some potential for gaps to form between the U.S. and the ROK position there. But at the end of the day, if the ROK has achieved the capabilities that the two sides have talked about by 2029 or earlier, then I think the stage has been set for a successful transfer of OPCON.
Let's also broaden our scope a little bit to the border. Of course, North Korea is also a major concern for South Korea as well. It has been escalating in new missile tests, including cluster-capable systems as well. How serious do you see this threat, and what do you think Pyongyang is trying to, what kind of message is it sending, amid this, Middle East situation?
Well, the Middle East has very much to do with this message, and the North Koreans are trying to demonstrate a very obvious point to me, which is we, North Korea, we're not Iran. We have nuclear weapons. We have a nuclear capability. We have sophisticated military capabilities, missile capabilities. We have the ability to cause pain in South Korea, in Japan, in the United States. So, as I might put it in sort of blunt English, don't mess with us is the message here. And so they're demonstrating a whole range of capabilities that could be brought to bear in the event of a conflict here. Not because they want to start a conflict, I think because they're afraid that we might start a conflict, and so they're showing us what their capabilities are. So it's a warning.
A show of force from their side. Victor Cha, the Korea chair of the CSIS, we are familiar with him.
Oh yeah, an old friend.
He suggests that arms control and not full denuclearization could be more realistic moving forward when it comes to North Korea. Do you think, what do you think of that? And also, do you think that could be an option for reopening U.S.-North Korea dialogue?
I read his recent article very, very carefully. The security and military recommendations that he makes in that article are very good in terms of U.S.-ROK-Japan cooperation to deal with the rising threat of North Korea. I agree with him on those things. I agree with him that the time for us to begin to focus on something other than just denuclearization has arrived. North Korea is a de facto nuclear power. They are not going to give up their nuclear weapons. So the question is, what do we do about that? That's where I start to differ with him. I always ask the question whenever he and others talk about arms control, why should we expect North Korea to be more sincere and serious about an arms control negotiation than they were about a denuclearization negotiation? Why would they be less deceptive in an arms control negotiation than they were in all of those various denuclearization talks we had with them? And ironically, if you read Victor's excellent article in Foreign Affairs, he actually makes those 2 points. And so the fatal flaw, I think, in his argument about arms control is that the reason why arms control is likely not to work and why the North Koreans are likely to cheat is apparent. I mean, this is their experience. And so I think pursuing that course of action, I understand why we would want to try to remove the threat or reduce the threat, but going down that path, I don't know that that's going to do it for the reasons that I have just mentioned, but also reasons that he mentions in his own article.
So it's also about how transparent the arms control agreement would be.
Yeah, but it also involves the fact that by agreeing to an arms control dialogue with North Korea, you are in effect accepting the reality of a permanent nuclear North Korea. And at the same time, he suggests in his article putting some things on the table as inducements for the North Korea deal that would trouble a lot of people here in Korea, like putting elements of the U.S. force posture on the table for negotiation with the North Koreans. That's not going to sit very well with any Korean government. So there's a lot of complications here.
Right, a very complex issue, of course.
Indeed.
So while the tensions on North Korea and, of course, the Middle East, where do you think South Korea's top diplomatic priority should be right now?
Maintaining strong links with the United States, but also with Japan. The recent discussions that took place with those 30 European ambassadors that came here. It's very important for South Korea in this very complicated world to build relationships of trust and confidence and plan together and coordinate together with other similarly minded partners, whether in Asia or in Europe. It's important, I think, for Korea to continue to work on that relationship with Japan. That provides an important foundation for Korea's security, as well as Japan's security, quite frankly. But also, I think Korea needs to understand that the current U.S. government has a very different view about alliances, and it is not as enthusiastic about alliance relationships as every previous U.S. government was, and Korea is going to have to figure out a way to move in these new and very complicated waters very, very carefully as it deals with the reality of a current American government that doesn't have the same perspective on alliance relationships as previous ones. That's a hard piece of homework right there.
Right, it seems very complicated, but just to be clear, so how do you think we should navigate this and strengthen, our alliance with Washington?
Maintain strength, continue to invest in defensive systems, continue to work with the United States to strengthen the ROK's own capabilities, but also work with regional and other partners to develop these partnerships, whether it's in security cooperation, technology cooperation, strategic cooperation. All of that, I think, combined together will help the Republic of Korea steer through these very problematic waters.
Right, so it will depend really on how Seoul navigates this current situation.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for your insights tonight, Mr. Revere.
Thank you.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.
개의 한국 기업이 석유화학, 조선, 철강, 전자를 아우르는 전 분야에 진출해서 높은 수준의 경제 연대를 이루고 있습니다. 우리 정부는 오늘 또름당 서기장과 합의한 협력 방안들을 충실히 이행하면서 양국 간의 포괄적 전략 동반자 관계를 더욱 전폭적으로 발전시켜 나갈 것입니다.
Chuyến thăm của ngài Tổng thống có ý nghĩa quan trọng, diễn ra trong bối cảnh quan hệ đối tác chiến lược toàn diện Việt Nam-Hàn Quốc đang ở giai đoạn phát triển tốt đẹp và hai nước đã trở thành đối tác tin cậy, hợp tác tầm chiến lược và là những người bạn thân thiết, hiểu biết lẫn nhau.
누나가 발레를 하다 보니까 자연스럽게 누나 발레 학원에 따라가서 누나가 하는 모습을 보니까 저도 하고 싶다고 생각이 조금 들어서 발레 음악에 맞춰서 아무 춤이나 추다 보니까 그냥 그 음악에 맞춰서 제가 몸을 움직이는 게 재밌다고 느껴졌었는지 발레를 계속 하고 있더라고요. 나이가 좀 어릴 때 제가